So as I mentioned, this is the last Sunday of our Centered Summer Worship Series. I'm missing the labyrinth this morning that we've had up here each week. I've kind of gotten attached to it. It feels like these last few weeks we've been walking this labyrinth together as a community on this journey toward being more grounded, more centered, finding the cooling breath of the Spirit. It's not so hot out this morning, but when we started this on the first Sunday that we did this like 6 weeks ago, it was like 105 or something that day. We've been journeying towards being more centered as things seem to get a little more uncentered, a little more deeply connected to the divine presence that runs through everything, more deeply connected so that we can be really and truly connected, so that we can help connect others as well. You know, that's the journey that we're all called to be on, this journey of faith. Help others find ways to be more centered and more grounded in this Spirit and this presence. You know, this Sunday always makes me really nervous. And I was really nervous at 8:30 because the chords were a little more contained in one space and I couldn't quite get around them. And I'm so afraid that I'm going to trip on one. I'm always afraid Millie's going to trip on one as normally she walks and wanders and these guys are moving and I'm always afraid I'm going to trip on something and this thing just drives me crazy. And remember a few weeks ago, now I'm really going to be in trouble. The kids, the labyrinth was, you guys are fine, you're fine. Remember your sermon illustrations here. We had the kids up here on the first Sunday, and Reverend Suze was teaching them to walk, and the organ chords were just kind of driving me crazy because they plug in to the center of the chancel. That's a conversation for another day. And I was so afraid the kids were going to trip on them. And then that first Sunday, one of them came running across and this wasn't so steady, and so it went, what's the noise we decided it makes? It makes this, that noise. And so during the week, I unplugged all the things and moved them back so that as people came and they could walk, all the cords weren't quite in the way. But I was walking it one day, and this was when finally I had to have Kevin level this thing out. Because I'm walking and I step on this and I'm really centered and then I come back around for the second time and I like it. We tried the pig earlier to see if that looks too. It really upset me that day. That, we were going to trip on the cords and I had to be careful because I'm getting myself all centered and prayerful, and then there's that noise that kind of distracts me. And then I'm walking out of the labyrinth on that day, and I realized, I started to laugh, like out loud, right? At how silly I was being. Now, I don't know about you, but my life doesn't tend to be nice and smooth and easy, and there are these cords that are constantly in our way that we have to be careful lest we trip on them. There are always going to be these moments of, I love it when he's here. There are so many things in life that as we're going along and we're trying to do the right thing that trip us up. And we find ourselves distracted and detoured and sometimes even feeling lost. Even when we don't mean to. Millie laid the microphone, a cross in front of my path earlier. She didn't mean to trip me up, but we almost did. And that's why this centered summer has been so important, I think. To stay really connected to that presence that some of us call God and some of us call Spirit and some of us identify with the guide of Jesus, and we search. We have been searching for these ways to stay connected so that we can hear the narrative that God is always singing to us. Have a little faith. And as Reverend Ryan said a few weeks ago, for him, he knows that most in the center of the labyrinth, and he so just wants to stay there. Because when you come back out of the labyrinth, you find all these chords that'll trip you up. And, lately I've even realized that so often religion is one of those things that trip us up, of course, if we're not careful. Used in divisive ways that detour people from the path of love, words that are hurtful, rituals that divide and exclude. And so often, it feels like music is one of those unifying things. Churches with much more conservative theologies than us sing that song that Millie sang. And progressive churches like us, and it reminds us, it grounds us. For me, it is one of those songs that I know in the center of the labyrinth. That regardless of what other chords and noisy boards and things that are going to trip me up, no matter what else is happening, great is thy faithfulness. So, vote on Tuesday. You know that, right? We're voting on Tuesday, both sides. And I'm so glad it's going to be Tuesday because, y'all, these ads are about to do me in. Amen. Thank you for the amen. Do me in. Like I want to take off my shoe and throw it at the television. And I'm not being partisan on that. I'm just saying. And I can get all tangled up in 47 chords and trip myself over that stuff. And newsflash, that's not going to get better anytime soon. At least I'm not anticipating that it's going to. So how do we stay really centered and really connected to the ways of love, to the ways of forgiveness, to the ways of hope that the gospel journey calls us to stay connected to? I'm thinking that music is one of those ways. We've given you labyrinths all over the city in your neighborhoods to find to help you stay connected. I know many of you have explored those. But music is like a really simple one. In music, sometimes we can hear a narrative, a story that maybe we can't hear through a sermon or through books or through a lecture or through NPR. How many places in our lives do people really sit and be quiet? Well, have you been to the symphony lately? What do they say when you go to the symphony? Where's my thing? Oh, it's down there on the floor. Turn it off. Put it in your purse and don't let it ring. And if you go to the Green Lady or to the Phoenix or wherever to hear these guys jam, you can't hear it anyway, so you might as well not even bother. Music helps us to center and to be grounded. And sometimes in music, it stirs up for us these feelings, these spiritual, holy, sacred Feelings that we can't even describe with words. I don't think this is just me. But sometimes when I'm in, I use that phrase out of sorts, when I get myself a little out of sorts, I have music almost on speed dial on my iPhone that help dial me back in. So that because I find myself, I'm all tangled up in all these chords. And I find myself sitting in the car, playing it on repeat over and over and over. Anybody else do that? I was really glad at 8:30 when people said they were, because for a minute I thought I was crazy about it. Because I just need to feel that feeling that song, that music evokes in me. And that's that feeling of the Spirit stirring. How do we stir up a little more of that in the world? How do we stir up more of that spirit of love and compassion? A spirit of hopefulness? I'm imagining today how music might be one of the ways that leads us forward into a more wonderful world for all God's children. I'm imagining how we might, in this place, continue to find ourselves more and more centered. Because as I have said all during this time, if we are not, how can we expect it to be happening anywhere else? That's the call of the gospel, remember? Is for us to be deeply centered in this feeling, in this spirit, in this presence, in this teachings of Jesus, in this path of the gospel, and helping others to find that path and know that as well. Imagine how we might do that. Imagine what it would look like for us if we felt more of that love that you can't quite describe, that presence that's so powerful that it almost scares you, but you want more of. That's holy stuff. This morning I'm wondering how we might imagine that. How we might imagine things that we don't even know we can imagine. We find that in the center, when we are deeply grounded and deeply rooted and deeply connected to the presence of love, to the presence of peace, to the presence of hope. May we imagine more of that for the world.